Meeting to order. Today is Monday, May 16, 2016. It's 7:45. We're here for the purpose of the regular meeting of the Elmhurst City Council. I'd ask that you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask that you call the roll.
Dwighter.
Did we already do that? No, we didn't. Sorry. I'm losing it already. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Dwighter. Here. Sabatino, absent. Leader.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Bram.
Here.
Polumsky. Here. York.
Here.
Toledo.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Kennedy, absent. Honquist.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
12 present, 2 absent.
12 present, 2 absent. We have a quorum. Before we get started tonight, I'm going to ask all of council and everyone in the chambers to join me in a moment of silence. One of our own in the past, Mayor Ray Fick, passed away a short time ago. Did a lot for this city. Several articles were written about him. I encourage you to do your own research, but the man was truly dedicated and did a lot for the city of Elmhurst. And I ask that you all join me in a moment of silence. Okay, thank you very much. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. On to tonight's agenda. Agenda item 3, receipt of written communication from the public. At this time, is there anyone who has any written communication they wish to submit to the clerk at this time? If so, please raise your hand. Any written communication? Seeing none, we'll move on to public forum. This is an opportunity, agenda item 4, this is an opportunity for anybody in the audience to address the council on any item they so choose. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes out of respect for work that we have to do and out of respect for other folks that may want to speak this evening. When you are called by the clerk, we ask that you head over to the microphone over here and state your name. Address is optional. We ask that you direct your comments to the council and not to the audience, and we'll get started. Clerk Spencer, at this time, is there anyone who has signed up for public forum this evening?
Yes, we'll start with Gilbert Fisher, 586 North Van Auken.
Mr. Fisher?
Good evening, Gilbert Fisher, 586 North Van Auken Street. This is for your information, so you know what's going on. Thank you. February is Black History Month. That's where we tell the black people how good they are. And it's also the month where I get letters from Washington, D.C. on my retirement. I remember this Black History Month this last year because there was a woman in Chicago who had 7 kids, and she was a single mother. And they wanted her to pay $69 a month for her health care. And it was in the Tribune on TV, and they finally decided that she did not have to pay health care. She gets it all free. 2 days after this, I got a letter from Washington, D.C., and it said that my secondary health care is going up $69 a month. Chink, chink, $69 less per paycheck for the rest of my life every month. Also, there was a $17 increase in my Medicare. Chink, chink, another $17 less a month for the rest of my life. That's a lot of money to be docked every month. Then came April. That's the Women's Expo, Black Women's Expo. I never paid attention to it, but I got another letter from Washington, D.C. It said that my health care, which my deductible was for $5,000 for the last 45 years, is now going up to $10,000 a year. And also my life insurance. A few years ago when I retired from the post office, I signed up for 2.5 times my salary for life insurance for my family, which for me that'd come out to about $100,000. They did away with that program, and they're making it one year's salary is now all the life insurance you can get. But when I signed up, I paid a higher premium for 2.5 times my salary. Oh, premium stays the same every month. Yes, I pay the highest property taxes in the United States. I pay tax on my electricity in my house, gas in my house, tax on my telephone, the highest water, and the highest garbage there is. And I just love all government in the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Ryan Wyckoff.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Wyckoff. I was born and raised in Elmhurst. Currently do not live here, but will be in the future. I'm here to speak on behalf of my parents who still reside here after 37 years in the 7th Ward. There are two issues that I'd like to speak about tonight, or bring to your attention. First thing is regarding fire department, not hiring vacated positions. I can relate to all of this as I have experienced a manning shortage where I work for a few years ago. Fortunately, we found a way to fix it there and hire and not supplement with a private company. Not filling positions increases overtime, overexertion, and injuries. Not filling results in improper staffing of fire vehicles. Another resident recently brought up NFPA 1710, the national standard for fire apparatus and responses. The Elmhurst Fire Department may have the response times within these standards, but they surely do not have the proper minimum staffing on fire vehicles. Second is advanced cardiac life support apparatus in town. For the size in town and amount of emergency calls that happen, it's unbelievable that Elmhurst is still basic life support on fire vehicles. I've been on the ambulance assisting Elmhurst for medical calls. During that time, the fire vehicle waiting for us to arrive, they could have been able to start ALS interventions if they were ALS, which reduces the time on scene and allows the patient to get definitive care at the hospital faster. Depending on the call type, this will save lives. I work in a town with a population of 8,500 people. We respond to 2,500 calls a year. It's pretty busy for a small town. Our 24 full-time members staff 2 ALS ambulances, an ALS engine, and an ALS truck. I personally have numerous documented calls where a life was saved because of our ALS engine before another ambulance arrived on scene. Life-saving drugs were given, intubations, IVs, etc. These incidents included cardiac arrests, overdoses, allergic reactions, and asthma attacks, just to name a few. In conclusion, my parents, the people I grew up with, and the rest of the residents deserve proper staffing and ALS engines. Every single town surrounding Elmhurst already has the capabilities of ALS engines and ladder trucks. If a town with an EAV 35% less in 2004 than 2008 can properly staff and equip their fire department, then so can you. Are you, as the governing body of this town, okay with the proper level of medical care some of the time, or 100% of the time with properly staffed and equipped ALS engines? Thank you.
Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
Claude Poggage, 566 West Gladys. City's made up of 2 parts, commercial and residential. Commercial's doing extremely well. The residents are doing rather poorly in this town. Council had a meeting last week in regards to an F5. Car dealer needs to expand. Needs $6 million plus. City doesn't have the money, so they're gonna sell another $2.4 million worth of general obligation bonds. And that's just the beginning. That only starts it with them. And the TIF's gonna run all the way down along Lake Street there. But it includes Barron's Park. Why? Barron's Park isn't taxable, doesn't supply sales tax, let alone it's gonna be in TIF 5. Why? Of what benefit? And why does this new TIF 5 run all the way down to York Road? What benefit? It's going to be voted on tonight. We got $81 million according to the press, another $2.4 million, and the dealer hasn't asked for all his other favors. But we also got on the agenda the end house at First and Addison. They had a little conversation with development and planning. They requested certain things, and now they're showing up. Again, there's a lot of money involved, residents' money. And this is just the beginning for First and Addison. And it's just the first thing for TIF 5. $81 million. A lot of money. But it's going to be paid for by a sales tax. That was put on general merchandise. Alderman asked about it. That's on everything a resident buys. Food for his children, clothes for his children. If that sales tax should not pay for those general obligation bonds, he's going to start seeing it up on his property taxes. So in the future, I wish this council would do one thing. Stop saying the city of Elmhurst pays for something. Because the commercial properties aren't. Because the TIFs last for 20-some years. And you're going to give them 75% of their sales tax. Because that's what you've been doing.
Mr. Pragash, could you wrap up your comments, please?
And if the sales tax doesn't pay those general obligation bonds off, you're going to add it to their property taxes. As sure as there's lightning with rain.
Tamara Brenner.
Tamara Brenner. First of all, I want to mention that the parking signage in the oversized parking garage, the signage in there is totally inadequate. The signs that show you which direction you should turn to leave the garage, you cannot see until you're immediately underneath it. Somebody should really take a drive around in there and check it out, but don't go too fast. Don't hurry to do this because the parking garage is mostly empty. It is oversized and mostly empty, so you have plenty of time to work on it. But it should be changed. Secondly, in agreement with what the gentleman said earlier regarding the fire department, this is a public safety issue. I wish the city of Elmhurst were spending a little bit more time on it. The privatization of ambulance services seems wrong to me. That should be a government function. Those should be provided in-house, unprivatize it. We shouldn't be giving profits to ambulance companies to provide services that our fire department can be providing. That's a public safety matter. That should be top of the things that you guys are working on. But instead, you've obviously spent quite some time working on this new TIF 5, which as far as I can tell, was first evident to the public last week. There's a timeline here that shows that there's been stuff going on with this for several months at least. But we just heard last week that another auto dealership has requested an incentive payment of $6 million. Wow, they're getting a little more bold as time goes on. These guys come with their hand out asking for free money from the city. This is corporate welfare, it seems to me. They come in suits asking for it with the threat that if you don't pay up, they'll leave. And they back the threat up by saying, well, another community has offered to give us this $6 million, so if you do it instead, then we'll stay. The city should be pretty upset, it seems to me, about being threatened like this constantly. This happens over and over again. We've heard the same story multiple times. We're going to leave if you don't pay up. Which city offered them the $6 million? What were the terms? There's no documentation about that. I'd like to go ask them about it as well. The timeline says that this dealership closed on property on May 2nd. That was 2 weeks ago. If they've already closed on property to do their expansion, then the but-for test doesn't seem to be passed. They bought property already. Why did they do that? Can they really not afford it? Or has the city of Elmhurst given them assurances that they'll get their money, don't worry about it? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, I don't know, but the impression sure is that they're confident that they're going to have the money that they want. And whether they need the money is another question. Your data says they're generating $107 million in sales per year, and you're telling me they can't afford their own renovations? They're going to increase their sales by 50% with their expansion. Why can't they use that money to fund their own renovations? The city should be upset rather than bending over backwards trying to help this process along. This has not been discussed publicly. You're going to pass this inducement ordinance or whatever it's called tonight, which I think is totally inappropriate. Maybe there's some time issues on the business's end, but that's not the city's concern. The city should not be concerning itself with whether BMW North America and its dealership here are having issues. You should be concerned about your fire department and things like that. Number 6.7 on your consent agenda that deals with the report about this inducement resolution, I guess it is, that should not be in the consent agenda. Please discuss it separately. Not that it's going to matter because I know you got the votes. But still, and number 10.1 should be rejected. There's been insufficient public discussion, and this is going way too fast because this TIF is going to be in place, like was mentioned too, for 20 plus years. TIF 2 is ending, except you want to continue it going, and there's probably some other private parties that are going to benefit heavily from that. That shouldn't be happening either, and this should be discussed publicly before you pass any of these things tonight. Oh, and by the way, do we have our money yet from Lucky Motors since they left after breaking their incentive agreement? Thanks.
That's all who signed in tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, that's it for everyone who had an opportunity to sign in tonight. Is there anybody who did not have an opportunity to sign in on a sign-in sheet in the back of the room before tonight's meeting, but still wishes to address the council? If so, please raise your hand at this time. Seeing none, that concludes our public forum portion of the meeting. On to announcements. Agenda item 5. Any announcements from the dais? Alderman Deuter, then I'll go to Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mayor. The Public Works and Building Committee meeting that would normally take place next Monday on May 23rd at 7 o'clock is going to take place the same day, but starting at 6 o'clock. So next Monday's meeting of the Public Works Committee will start at 6 o'clock. Thank you.
Alderman Bram?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to, answer one of the questions that was just asked in regards to Lucky Motors. No, that is under current litigation, so we have not had any results there. But the other reason why I wanted to talk at announcements was kind of to highlight some new businesses in town. Over this weekend in the 3rd Ward, there's 2 new businesses, which I'm happy to report. The Starbucks in the Paragon development that includes a drive-through is now up and running, I believe, this past Friday. I believe it's Friday because I saw a long line of cars in that drive-through to get some of Starbucks treats. Pretty much right across the street, Cilantro, and a Mexican, I'll call it quotes, fast food restaurant, just opened up this Saturday as well on the north side, right across from Mariano's on York and Belden. And they as well have had no drive-through there, but have had a long line as well. So the North York TIF seems to be doing its thing and drawing, even though they don't, the Cilantro has not gotten an incentive, but is drawing new development in North York, and that is definitely a benefit. So check out those 2 new businesses and all the existing as well. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. At this time, is there any item on the consent agenda any alderman wishes to have removed, to vote no, or provide further comment? Alderman Healy.
6.8.
Okay. Any other items any alderman wishes to have removed? Alderman Bram.
6.13.
6.13. Okay. Any other items any alderman wishes to have removed? Okay, I will now entertain a motion to entertain the consent agenda minus items 6.8 and 6.13. Motion to approve consent agenda minus those items. Motion by Alderman York, second by Alderman Deuter. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask that you call a roll.
Deuter.
Aye.
Sabatino, absent. Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Toledo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy, absent. Honquist.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Consent agenda is approved minus items 6.8 and 6.13. On to agenda item 6.18, or 6.8. Before I ask Clerk Spencer to read this, I'm going to go to Alderman Healy first. Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mayor. We were notified this afternoon that IC withdrew the request to have the block party, thereby making this report meaningless, as well as the resulting ordinance 9.1.
Okay, so you didn't have them at their meeting, there's no report to vote on, and the corresponding ordinance 9.1. So those will be both taken off the agenda, nothing to vote on in either case. Is that
That is correct.
okay? On to agenda item 6.13. This is an ordinance. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask that you read the ordinance.
An ordinance granting a conditional use permit with associated variations and preliminary and final approval of a plat of subdivision for the redevelopment of property commonly known as 100 North Addison, Elmhurst, Illinois.
Okay, to put this ordinance before council, I will ask for a motion to approve of the ordinance as read. Motion by Alderman Levin, second by Alderman Honquist. Alderman Levin, this is a result of a report out of your committee. Do you want to address it, or do you want to?
No, I think it's been adequately discussed. We'll just have moved its adoption.
Okay. Alderman Bram, you pulled this ordinance.
Yes, sir. And I won't go in depth because we talked about it when it was a report and not an ordinance. This was delayed 2 weeks ago by one of our municipal code ordinances to allow 3 aldermen to delay it for 2 weeks. Now that we have a full city, or relatively full city council sitting at the dais today, I believe it's going to be moving forward. I will stress that I think there's a lot of unknowns with this development. High density is one of the biggest ones, not including what they're subsequently asking for TIF incentives, et cetera, down the line. But I cannot be on board with this from a perspective of I forgot the numbers now, but 800% or something significant in regards to the density increase compared to what is allowed today per ordinance. It's not a 50%, it's not even 100%, it's significantly higher than what we allow per ordinance. And even as a conditional use or variance, if you would, I don't understand on how we can go that far above and beyond when our ordinances are that significantly less. I get it, each is a case-by-case basis, but when it's that extreme, I don't know on how we can move forward with something that has that significant of a difference in density.
Okay, any additional comments or input as it relates to this ordinance? Alderman Dunn.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to follow up a couple of points that Alderman Bram have. I too tend to agree. I believe this project, as it's laid out, is too dense in nature, forces too much parking, and we're losing some parking on the first floor, which creates a gap on Addison along with First Street. And I'm looking at our new downtown plan, our proposed downtown plan that's getting ready to be accepted. And there's statements in there to the effect that we want to eliminate gaps in the in the retail segment along streets. And so that's a concern of mine. The second concern is the proposed materials. I also believe the proposed building materials with a lot of that being concrete board. I don't think it's consistent with the design elements that are in our new downtown plan, and the wording on that goes to something to the effect that all new developments should consider architectural attributes and character of existing buildings in the downtown, and that's right out of our new downtown plan. So because of those two factors, I have concerns about the development, and I won't be supporting it going forward. Thanks.
Okay, any additional comments? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll.
Deuter,
No?
Sabatino, absent. Leader,
Aye.
Dunn,
No.
Graham,
No.
Volumsky,
No.
York,
Aye.
Toledo,
Aye.
Healy,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Kennedy, absent. Honquist,
Aye.
Wagner,
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Did everybody? Okay. 8 ayes, 4 nays, 2 absent.
8 ayes, 4 nays, motion carries. Agenda item 6.13 is approved. On to committee reports 7.1. Clerk Spencer, this is a report out of Finance. I'd ask that you read the recommendation.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee that the City Council authorize the city attorney to prepare the necessary ordinance and other documents to establish a new special service area for the Virginia Lane Townhomes with a term of 10 years and a maximum tax rate of $4 per $100 of EAV to replace existing SSA number 5. Signed by Kevin L. York, Chairman, Bob Dunn, Vice Chairman, Noel P. Toledo, and Mark P. Sabatino.
Okay, to put this before council, I will ask for a motion to approve the report and recommendation as read. Motion by Alderman York, second by Alderman Dunn. Alderman York, your report.
Thank you. This is a replacement SSA for one that's expiring up at York and Grand. There's many townhomes up there. I don't honestly remember how many there are, but there's a lot of them up there. They were built before there were association laws, and so basically this acts as the collection vehicle for the townhome association to keep the properties in good repair, keep maintenance up, do capital projects as needed, such as fences and whatnot. This has been in existence since 1996, and it's simply replacing an old expired SSA with a new one. This is the beginning of the process. We don't expect any resistance at all from the owners up there. They understand the value of this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any additional comments or questions? Alderman Dunn.
Just to further clarify how this works with our budget process, we would get a planned expenditure from the board of the townhomes as to what was needed for that year, and with a cap of $4 per $100 of EAV. We've generally been levying a lot less than that. So based on the plan that the board of the townhome submits, that the city would levy that amount so that they can upkeep the properties. I was surprised that we were involved with this particular development, but as Alderman York said, this was created before the homeowner legislation was available to properly maintain these, and it's been well received by the homeowners up there, and it's a way to keep up the properties in a good standard, a good condition that we would like to see in Elmhurst. Thanks.
Okay. Alderman Toledo.
Just to add on to my colleagues, something that wasn't mentioned in the report that you may all want to know is that the board, that represents the townhomes wants this SSA, primarily because they do believe that it helps, as Alderman York and Alderman Dunn mentioned, helps upkeep the property. But also because, and this is mentioned in the report, because in order for them to form their own homeowners association, which I think we would all prefer, they would need 100% of all of the owners to approve that. And they don't think that it's likely that 100% of them would do that, although a large majority do support this process and this way of funding that alternatively moving forward. So I just wanted everyone to know that. Thank you.
Okay, any comments? Alderman Bram.
Yeah, I just want to say a couple of things on this. I want to thank, the committee on this, but also the city who's been willing to do this for, I don't know, decades, I assume. I know as long as I've been around, this has been the protocol for these townhomes. And they have done a lot of good things, as the committee's already mentioned, surfacing or redoing the parking lot, brand-new fencing, the roofs of the townhome, landscaping, et cetera, down the line. So it is a win-win, I think. It's really no dollars out of the city's pocket other than the logistic or the administration aspect of continuing this TIF going forward and the time of the committee as well. But the rewards on the homeowners as well as the neighborhood is exponential, so thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to please call a vote.
Deuter,
Aye.
Sabatino, absent. Leader,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Palomsky,
Aye.
York,
Aye.
Toledo,
Aye.
Healy,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Kennedy, absent. Honquist,
Aye.
Wagner,
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries, report is approved. On to agenda item 8, reports and recommendations of appointed elected officials. Mayor Morley, that's me. A couple things to report. Just this last Sunday was our annual museum day, where we allow folks to go to our museums for free. We also offered a trolley, very same trolley that will be offered during this summer. And it ran between the History Museum, the History Museum, the Lizadro Museum, and the Art Museum. And I'm happy to say that it was our most successful museum day ever, with over 800 visitors. And I want to thank the directors of each museum and staff for making that happen. Last Wednesday, we had our Madison Stormwater Open House. I think, as most folks are aware, we have an agreement with District 205 to do one of our stormwater projects at the south end of their property. This will also actually include an expansion of this. The city's actually going to be going into, I think, is that Adams on the south? There's room immediately south of this project, not only in the right-of-way, but also in the streets, and infrastructure allows where we can actually expand this project a little bit and add another acre-foot of storage. So we're happy that's off and running. Had the open house last Wednesday, about 35 residents attended and asked some good questions. Third report, stormwater committee meeting, and that's the committee meeting between Parks, Schools, and City, is the 25th this month. Only 205 this month, not Park District. We're at a bit of a lull. We're expecting them to get back to us on a couple of things, and they would be at the next meeting. But the Stormwater Communications Committee meeting is May 25th of this month, and we hope to be getting final answers from District 205 on the outstanding issues from the Bryan lot. And then final report was the Elmhurst Art Museum held their annual soiree over the weekend. I was fortunate enough to attend. It's one of their fundraisers, and it was a terrific event. And my thanks and appreciation goes out to Jenny Gibbs, who runs the Art Museum and has done a fantastic job. And that's it for reports for me. City Manager Grabowski.
Thank you. I have a few items to talk about. The first, though, is a recognition for the Finance Department. Each year, after we put our budget together, we submit that to the Government Finance Officers Association for review of it. And over the last 9 years, we have been awarded the Distinguished Budget Award, and I'm proud to say that now we make it 10 in a row, thanks to Tom Trezine, who couldn't be here tonight because he had a family obligation. But we have Peg Orsine and Ryan Bruns in the audience as part of our finance department, who are here to accept the council's recognition of that. So I would ask you to join me in some applause for them. And with that, we will proudly display the certificate and the plaque that was given to us recently as well. Thank you both. Next is O'Hare runways. Recently, you've probably read in the news that there was some activity through the O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission regarding runway rotation. And as I've been here, I've given a couple presentations on O'Hare and traffic and the way that the airport is operated. And so I want to go through a little bit of that tonight, but I would recommend that everybody go to the oharenoise.org website, oharenoise.org. There's a number of documents on there that I would recommend people look at, which explains the program. I'm going to give it a brief run tonight. Before I do, though, I want to explain a few acronyms that I'm going to use because this is full of them. The first is SOC, S-O-C, which is the Suburban O'Hare Commission, and the city is a member of. The second is the ONCC, which is the O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission. The next one is FAIR, F-A-I-R, which is the Fair Allocation of Runways. And then the last is CDA, or Chicago Department of Aviation. So the relationship that is among these is that the ONCC is appointed by the Chicago Department of Aviation. So that's kind of a public body that is appointed by the Chicago Department of Aviation to try to work with the neighbors around the airport regarding noise issues. SOC is a group generally on the west side of the airport, and FAIR is a group that's generally on the east side of the airport, and they are groups of communities that have gotten together to take on different issues and tackle different issues with the airport. After the change in runways to a mainly east-west flow, the communities that had not had a tremendous impact from the airport before that change saw a tremendous impact from that change. And so a few of them raised the issue with the ONCC and asked what could be done to try to mitigate that. Well, there's hundreds of flights per day that go east-west, generally on prevailing winds. But at nighttime, there are a limited number of flights, only limited by the number of people that want to fly, not necessarily by any regulation that the FAA puts in place. There's generally about 70 takeoffs and arrivals in an evening. And so the ONCC wondered if there was a way that they could try to minimize noise for any community on a certain night, is how I would put it. And the way that they approached that was to look at the idea of a runway rotation plan. Once word of that came about, the Suburban O'Hare Commission decided that they would commission a study to look at that. FAIR got into it by looking at some information, and ONCC commissioned a study as well. So the members of SOC got together and said, we're going to hire these experts. I think I talked about that a number of months ago. God bless you. That will look at the idea of runway rotation every night on a daily basis. The city declined to participate in that study because, one, we felt it was money that was not well spent, and two, we did not support runway rotation necessarily because obviously with an east-west flow, Elmhurst stood to gain, and we've seen that over the year or so that it's been in place. SOC went ahead without us and commissioned the study. The results showed that they could do a daily rotation of nighttime flights, and keep in mind, this is only during nighttime, and it's a period of time that they call fly quiet. And fly quiet is more or less a suggestion to pilots that they fly according to the terms of fly quiet time period. However, it's always the pilot's choice whether he or she wants to fly according to the fly quiet suggestions. And that's from a safety standpoint and somewhat of a convenience standpoint. And it also depends on prevailing winds. It depends on nighttime activity at the airport, such as closed runways. So there's a number of factors that go into this in deciding where planes are going to land or not going to land. At the same time that ONCC was doing their study, SOC was doing their study. SOC sent their results over to ONCC. The ONCC results were to try fly quiet on a weekly basis. So each week, a certain set of runways would be selected from the 11 o'clock at night until 5 in the morning time period, and they would primarily use those, the controllers in the tower would primarily use those runways for arrivals and departures. Again, according to wind direction, safety, and convenience of the pilots. So SOC suggested that they consider the daily method, and ONCC ultimately voted to try the weekly method. ONCC is a recommending body to the Chicago Department of Aviation, so they have sent their recommendation to CDA. CDA is going to review it and recommend it to the FAA. Ultimately, the FAA would adopt it and tell the controllers in the towers, here's the operational plan for the evening hours, here's the rotation plan. We'd appreciate it if you would use this when possible. So that is where things stand as far as our participation. We did not participate in the study. We did not participate in the recommending letter to ONCC from SOC because we are not in support of the runway rotation plan. That will go into effect in June, and it will be a 6-month trial. At the end of 6 months, the FAA will evaluate it. I'm sure the other groups, SOC, FAIR, and ONCC, will all conduct an evaluation of it as well. I would recommend that people go to the website because there are some good presentations on how this is going to happen and why they decided to do this. And as always, we can take questions, hope to answer them. And again, as we've said in each of our presentations, or I've said, if there are complaints, though, we do have the numbers for Chicago Department of Aviation on our website, and so people can use those to register complaints of noise during these hours. So with that, I would ask if there's any questions, and I do have one more item for my report.
Why don't you finish your last item on your report,
Okay.
and then we'll go to questions on any report item you brought up.
So the last part of my report applies to one of the agenda items tonight, which is a little unique for us, I understand that, but it involves one of our stormwater projects, and it involves the quarry project, which, of course, we've wanted to move forward as quickly as possible. And at the, I don't know if it was the last Public Works meeting, maybe the one before that, where the committee recommended the easement for the project, there was a question about when can the contractor get started on the work. And we were waiting for an agreement from the county to proceed with that work. Well, late last week, we received that agreement, and that's for the Walnut Myrtle Evergreen Stormwater Project. And the work that needs to be done is the final phase of this project. It's the connection from the street into the quarry, which is underground. It involves quite a bit of work because we will be taking some rock out of the quarry to put the pipe through. And our contractor is ready to start that work. So after receiving the agreement late last week, understanding that we didn't have time to go to a Public Works Committee, I conferred with City Attorney Storino on how we could most expediently approve this. As a result of that conversation with City Attorney Storino, I'm going to ask the council to consider suspending the rules tonight and approve the ordinance, which would give me the authority to sign the agreement with with the county so that our contractor can start work. As I said, typically, we'd send this through the Public Works Committee and on to City Council for approval. However, if we do follow that schedule, the contractor would have to wait until June 6th to start the work at the earliest point. And at that time, we'd have to pay for remobilization of the contractor, whereas right now, he has all the equipment on site. We have this as part of the project already. The contractor is ready to go. And so what I'm asking tonight under item 9.2 would be to suspend the rules and make a motion to approve with consideration of that ordinance.
Okay, I didn't realize that was your last item. I thought you were continuing on with the report. Before we address 8.3, which City Manager Grabowski just presented to us, is there any questions anybody has for City Manager Grabowski about the initial part of his report, whether it's with O'Hare or anything else? Alderman Braham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you, City Manager Grabowski. I do appreciate the report on O'Hare. I was going to actually ask about that tonight because there has been a lot of development, a lot of discussions on that as of late. Those discussions, the results of those discussions, I should state, don't seem to favor the City of Elmhurst at all. City of Elmhurst has been impacted by the diagonal runways ever since they put in those diagonal runways for decades. We have been talking in communication, and part of SOC, and in communication with the various government bodies as well as City of Chicago and the representation from O'Hare and the FAA, et cetera, for over a decade, if not a couple of decades at this point. The agreement was to move forward with the east-west parallel runways. There was some concerns, at least on my point, of the east-west parallel runways and how they would impact Elmhurst, but overall it has been a benefit to Elmhurst. To hear multiple statements from multiple entities with this very large government project, the east-west runways or O'Hare modernization, for them to continue to say on what the changes would be and how it would impact the communities, and then to do, in my eyes, an about-face and do or at least propose at this time, a runway rotation plan, which will therefore impact the City of Elmhurst once again. We were told and promised, maybe not promised, I don't remember anymore, but at least told on various occasions that the diagonal runways, once the east-west runways would be in, would only be used under certain weather conditions. We had someone here, thank you Alderman Dunn for that, I think it was, the gentleman was from the FAA, presenting to us on how that would impact or lessen the impact on the City of Elmhurst, on how the diagonal runways would only be utilized during bad weather conditions. To hear that other communities are complaining, and I don't blame them at all, but to hear that they're complaining and that they had significant impact to allow, at least at this time, for a runway rotation plan and the City of Elmhurst to be impacted once again under any weather conditions by the diagonal runways is unfair to the City of Elmhurst. I am glad to hear City Manager Grabowski state tonight that the city has declined to participate in the rotation study. I'm glad to hear that we have been silent or not participating in a lot of things that tie to the runway rotation plan. But I would like to ask, silence is one thing, but what are we doing to speak out and speak against the runway rotation plan? I haven't heard that tonight or previously that the City of Elmhurst, with or without any other communities, are taking a stance to say this is not right, this is unfair, this is against what has been promised for many years, if not over a decade. So at this time, I would like to ask the city, possibly City Manager Grabowski, to respond to what have we done and what do we plan to do to take a stance against this rotation plan. Thank you.
I'll answer a little bit of that, and I'll turn it over to City Manager Grabowski. As council is aware, we're a member of SOC, Suburban O'Hare Commission, which was originally formed 20 years ago-ish to fight O'Hare expansion. We see how well that worked. ultimately, it shifted into just kind of this ad hoc group that kept an eye on O'Hare and what was happening, and now has since turned into a bit of a watchdog as it relates to flying patterns. And I've mentioned this in the past in previous reports, and City Manager Grabowski stated a little bit in his report. The issue that we have now is that we have a divergence of what I'll say needs or interests on SOC. So about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, SOC moved forward with 2 different plans to study flying patterns out of O'Hare. And that was fine. We as a committee, SOC as a committee, was sitting on something like $260,000 in federal grant money. Ultimately, I think the cost, it went a little over that, so the cost to the city of Elmhurst, without knowing the conclusions at the time, was about $5,000. That's, City Manager Grabowski and I talked about that, and we said, well, we currently need to have a seat at the table, and we thought that expenditure, and I believe council was made aware of that expenditure in a report, was appropriate. But as things started to shape up with SOC, we declined to continue to participate financially with SOC, which puts us in a funny position, because right now we are members of SOC. I would say we're a non-paying member of SOC, and as our interests continue to diverge, the city manager and I have had several conversations on whether or not we should remain a member of SOC. The problem is if we don't take the opportunity to be at least a member at the table, we won't know what's coming, and we won't be able to voice any opposition, which we have, Alderman Bram, to answer your question, on this specific proposal, on one-way rotation. We have made our opposition to the entire SOC board and all of its members perfectly clear that any rotation would impact the city of Elmhurst, and therefore we don't support it. However, much like this group here, we're 1 vote out of 16?
A little less than that, 12.
12, 1 vote out of 12. Our opinion is the minority opinion as it relates to this runway rotation. So as it relates to SOC, they're fully aware of our opposition to this runway rotation. We will continue to attend SOC meetings because I think it's important to understand what their opinions continue to be and continue to defend our interests. But as it relates to our SOC involvement, it's important that council and the city understands that we're in the minority at this point as it relates to this rotation. And I'll turn it over to City Manager Grabowski to see if there's anything additional he would want to add to that.
Thank you, Mayor. That was a great summary of where we stand with SOC and our differing opinion. There were, so I think taking what the mayor said is we're standing out there alone as far as SOC communities go. Fighting something like this gets very expensive, but it doesn't mean that we can't get the resources together if that's a priority. There were a few of the ONCC communities who voted against this in the northwest suburbs. It's my intent to reach out to them to see what, if anything, they're going to do to try to fight this. But I can tell you that our SOC counterparts will not be standing with us on that because they stand to gain relief from this as it goes. A couple things that I mentioned that I just want to reemphasize is this plan is more or less a suggestion to the pilots as they come in. It's going to be weather dependent. It's going to be safety dependent on runway usage because they do close a number of runways at night for maintenance. And then the third is pilots still have the choice of where they want to land or take off. Ultimately, it's the pilot's call to the tower to say, this is the runway I need to use because of the size of my plane and the length of the runway and all that. And the tower acquiesces to that every time in the name of safety. So my point in that is the plan that's laid out here doesn't necessarily mean that it will be those runways every time, every night that it's scheduled. It's going to be dependent on a number of decision points.
Alderman Mulliner.
I have to say that I agree with Alderman Bram. We need to make sure that we have a seat at the table at this. We were one of the founding members of SOC. We need to put every bit of clout we have behind this. The agreement that, even though it was not a formal agreement, but the deal was they were building east-west runways with the intent that, as Alderman Bram stated, clearly it was only going to be a weather usage for the runways going over Elmhurst. In other words, to eliminate these issues. So we need to make sure that, I just heard that we don't have a seat really at the table. Are we a member of SOC or are we not a member? If we're not a member, I think we need to reevaluate that and become a member again so that we have more of a voice at the table, because this is a critical piece to the entire city of Elmhurst. Even though we all believe that it affects the north end more than any place else, it affects the entire city of Elmhurst. And the agreement was put together that this was going to run east-west, and we were going to be the emergency, if you will, weather-related backup, this the runway that was left facing Elmhurst. And I would hope that we can continue to put that clout forward and go back to some of those members who agreed to this originally and say, let's go back to our agreement. An agreement is an agreement.
Not sure how you misunderstood what I said, Alderman Brand, but we're a member of SOC. I mean, Alderman Mulliner.
Wasn't me this time.
We're a member of SOC, and continue to plan to be so, but we will not support any reports coming out that support this runway rotation, and we have refused to participate financially in any reports that support this rotation. So, to be clear.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought I heard you say we were not a member anymore.
Nope, we are a member, and we'll continue to do so. We just have refused the last couple of times to participate financially in efforts to support the rotation.
Okay.
Alderman Levin.
Mayor, and maybe city manager knows this, but isn't this sort of an interim plan because there's another runway coming online that would really change this rotation when that happens?
It will add to the rotation. It's an east-west runway that's being added. But at that time, the diagonal runways that point to the northwest will be removed. So that eliminates one option but puts in another option for them. And I believe that's been accounted for into the future. Obviously, it won't be there now because it's a 6-month trial, but eventually that will be included.
Thank you.
Who covers Fair? What communities does Fair cover?
It's the kind of northeast part.
I mean, there's a lot of alphabet soup going on here. I think a lot of us have seen the long-term O'Hare expansion, which included, I think, 2 additional runways that Alderman Levin just referred to in the northwest corner of O'Hare. Ultimately, as I understand, almost all major airports in the United States run east-west. And the long-term plan was for O'Hare to ultimately run east-west and get rid of these diagonal runways. The one, was it 21L, I think, is the southeast one that affects us the most. Certainly, we wholeheartedly support the City of Chicago and the FAA and the full expansion that would ultimately result, I think, in 8 parallel runways. But pick your acronym, whether it's FAIR or SOC or any of the other ones, and take a look at a map. And all of the towns on the east side and the west side of O'Hare don't support additional traffic over their communities, and all the runways on the north side and the south side of O'Hare don't support additional traffic in their communities. Ultimately, the plan that was laid out 10 years ago, I believe, by O'Hare and the FAA was what I'll call a parallel airport. Everything running east-west, the majority of the flights inbound and outbound running east-west. Ultimately, that's what we're going to stick with. But you get these changing, what I'll call, you have these groups that are made up, and depending on which report you see, the votes go directly according to where they're affected. Right now, we're a member of SOC. We do have communications with ONCC and the other ones. And every opportunity we have, we express our opinion. But depending on which board you're in front of and which group it represents, you're either in a minority or in the majority. Any additional comments or questions? Alderman Bram.
Thank you. And Alderman Mulliner made the statements in regards to the long history. I don't want to go down that road, but route, but we do have a long history. Looking at FAIR, and what brought this to my attention was, I believe it might have been a Chicago Tribune article. One of the papers had an article on this topic, and I did see a list of communities at the table. My concern was that I didn't see Elmhurst listed as one of those communities at the table at that particular discussion. I'm not making an assumption that Elmhurst has never been at the table, but I am making an assumption, at least from the article, that at least per that discussion, which seemed to be where there were a lot of the, I don't know, quote-unquote heavyweights, decision makers, from Chicago, from FAA, from ONCC, we were not present at that, at least wasn't reported on by the article. I do have concern, Alderman Levin's statements of, yeah, this is a plan. Yeah, well, we know how that goes. A plan becomes reality before you blink an eye, and that is my concern. I do really believe, looking at the FAIR website, I don't know if this is a consistent of government bodies, the FAIR Coalition, or more of a resident stance. But I will say, looking at it, there's aldermen from various communities that's participating in it. There's commissioners, county commissioners participating, senators, state senators, et cetera, down the line. So this organization, this coalition, seems to at least have the air of a whole bunch of elected officials throughout the Chicagoland area, and I think we need to be just as loud or louder to make sure that what was promised, and I don't know if it was in an agreement or not, and I would like that research to be done on the city of what was really in writing per our agreement, because we were part of SOC and one of the founding members. On the FAIR website, which seems to be supporting of this runway rotation, I also see Bensonville, which was also one of the founding members of SOC, so I'm not sure what position they're taking as a community. I think I could guess, though. But I would like some research done from the city perspective. What are our legal rights? What has been done? And what is our plans moving forward? Because I don't think we should sit idle, even if we are the only one speaking out against this rotation. I think, as Alderman Mulliner stated, it impacts a good majority of not only the north side, but the community as a whole, when you talk about O'Hare and airplane noise moving forward.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Alderman Dunn.
Just a few follow-up items. I know this has been a big issue for the north side, for the second ward. Alderman Leader and I were continually getting calls, concerns over the amount of noise, airplane noise, particularly in the right down the middle of our ward. But with the opening of the new runway in October, the amount of feedback we've gotten from the residents has really dwindled down to a very small amount. I think I had one call maybe in the last few months. What I do recall from the modeling that was done by the FAA is, as far as daytime goes, the takeoffs and the landings on that runway that affected us was about 30% of the takeoff and landings. And then after the new runway opened, it dropped to about 20% on the departures, and the landings went down to practically zero. So it was a big improvement, and we saw that in reduced complaints from the residents. I know that airplane noise was generally a top 3 or top 5 concern in our city survey. And this is a survey we issue every 2 years to the residents, and I know we have one in process now, the 2016 survey, and I'm pretty sure that is going to have drifted down quite a bit. But I agree with some of the other statements that we need to remain diligent in our opinions regarding the traffic at O'Hare because it does impact Elmhurst immensely. But this particular proposal is a plan. It's a 12-week rotation, and it's a 6-month trial, and I'm eager to see if we notice any difference. It may be very noticeable, or it might be completely unnoticeable to the residents, but we shall see. Thanks.
Okay, any additional comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. City Manager Grabowski, as part of his report, jumped to 8.13. 8.3. Were you finished on that?
I'm done.
Okay, so as it relates to 8.3, this is something that I want to explain to council, is a little different, but I think once you hear the explanation, you'll understand it. As city manager mentioned, we're doing the flood mitigation project for the tree streets. Ultimately, it's about 20 acre-feet, and that project is moving along very quickly. But one of the things that's required of that project is that we have to get permission and strike a contract with DuPage County that allows us to go on their land, so we continue our project ultimately and put a pipe into their quarry and dump water in there if we have a storm event. And that's basically what this is. We did not get, what do we call the agreement? We did not get the agreement from DuPage County until late last week, location agreement. It's on ordinance agenda item 9.2. Long and the short of it is what we're trying to do here tonight, and we've talked to City Attorney Storino. The best way we can do this legally is, as City Manager mentioned, should there have been enough time, this would have gone through committee. It would have been my hope to be discussed at committee for one meeting and then come to council for approval. It's basically allowing the city manager, gives the city manager authority to sign this agreement so we can continue with this tree streets project, so we can get it completed as quickly as possible and dump water into the quarry. So long and the short of it, the city manager's report here tonight, this verbal report we got, is in replacement of what would normally be a committee report. So the hope is that with the city manager's explanation as it relates to what we need to do with the county to continue this project, along with the understanding, as the city manager stated, that not only is there a financial impact to our project if we wait on this, but the other issue, quite frankly, I think all of us feel it, is it's springtime and every time it rains, there is a significant timing issue with this. Basically, this agreement and what we do here tonight will allow this project to move forward unfettered versus being delayed if it went through committee. Now, if we had gotten this agreement from DuPage County a week and a half ago, it would have gone through committee, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. Long story short, this is City Manager Grabowski's report is being treated as a committee report, if you will, for all of us to consider. Ask it any additional questions, if you will, of City Manager Grabowski. Ultimately, at the end of this conversation of 8.3, I'm going to be asking council for a motion to suspend the rules that will allow us to pass the ordinance 9.2 that's coming up. Okay? That's kind of my layman terms explanation, but people understand what we're doing here this evening. All right, City Manager Grabowski, is there anything else you want to add as it relates to your report of 8.3?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, before I ask for a motion to suspend rules allowing for a vote on the ordinance in a couple of items, is there anybody who has any additional questions as it relates to City Manager Grabowski and his report and request that will allow him ultimately to sign this location agreement between the city and DuPage County? Any questions? Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mayor. It's not a question, it's a comment. I continue to be impressed by how fast this project has started to where we are now and the tremendous cooperation we've gotten from the county. They could have brought us this ordinance or the language 5 minutes ago, and I would vote to approve it tonight.
Okay, Alderman Deuter.
Thanks, Mayor. To clarify that there will be an easement agreement that will be kind of for the long-term use of the quarry. This is a location agreement that gives us, you can see the date, it's only through June 6, 2016. It gives us or our contractors the ability to enter the site for purposes of clearing the land and to start prepping the land. So it's moving things along, but there will be an easement agreement still that will
Yes,
come.
this is
And I
just
assume move through the normal approval process.
This is a temporary agreement that addresses access during construction. Any other additional comments or questions? Alderman Braham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I showed great concern of this when we received notification from the city staff on Friday that this was under this ordinance was under the consent agenda. At that time, I responded immediately to city staff of my concerns. Not receiving a response back from my concerns, I later received notification that the agenda was changed. It was moved out of the consent agenda under ordinances, and the city manager was going to do a verbal communication on the topic. I'm glad to see that change. I'm glad to see that it was discussed, and I think, quite frankly, that that was needed to make this legal per our municipal code. With that said, the changes before us, I agree in substance of the report. I don't agree with the procedure. It may be legal or allowed via the code, and I did have a conversation before this meeting with City Attorney Storino, where he pointed me to the line item in our Chapter 2 Municipal Code that they're utilizing to be able to move in this direction. In my 15 years as an elected official, I have never seen an ordinance thrown on the agenda without at least a committee report. In all due respect, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you can, if anyone could really conclude that City Manager Grabowski's communication is equivalent to a committee report. A committee report, and the reason for committee reports and the reason for it to go through committee is to give the public the opportunity to speak, the committee to hash out any concerns or issues, but the main reason is for the public to have multiple opportunities, the report as well as an ordinance, to talk and voice their concerns, if any, over any issues that come before us. We're skipping the committee process here by doing this. And I beg to differ that this is the only way we could have gone about this, because it's not. As you saw on the agenda tonight, Public Affairs and Safety was going to meet before the City Council meeting to talk about a potential report coming out and the subsequent, I don't know, it was an ordinance or resolution for an issue for Public Affairs and Safety. Why didn't Public Affairs or Public Works do the same thing if there was such an urgency, if there was such a potential expense issue or delaying of the project issue? I don't have those answers, but it wasn't done. There's many procedures in place that we as a council could have taken place to have done other than throwing an ordinance on the agenda with no public feedback, with no opportunity for the committee to discuss. This is not the way we should be running procedurally here in the city of Elmhurst. We can reference Chapter 2's one line item in the municipal code, but I could tell you that it's never been done before without a committee report, with just an ordinance being thrown on the agenda, at least in my time here. There's always an opportunity. It might not be convenient for us as elected officials, but an opportunity to do this procedurally, what I would deem to be the right way, compared to doing it this way. Again, I wholeheartedly support the Tree Street project. I wholeheartedly support this ordinance. I don't support the method and the procedures, or lack thereof of procedures, about how we're going about it tonight.
Alderman Mulliner.
Strange night. I have to agree with Alderman Braham again. I've been here for the longest out of everybody, and this is the first time in the history that I've seen an ordinance put forward without a report from a committee. Concerns me greatly. There's two processes. One is the process of the report being done, and in our standard procedure, there's usually a 2-week gap between that and the opportunity for the ordinance to be put forward. I wholeheartedly support this project. I think we need to move it forward, but I do believe that there was a way that we could have had a meeting earlier today and made sure that this was done through a proper procedure and not through a manager or a twisting of the ordinances that we have to make this so that it works. I understand that we can do this through emergency processes, but I do not support this concept of circumventing our standard operating procedures. I wholeheartedly support this, but I don't think that the process was done properly.
Any additional comments? Seeing none, I'm going to do a belt and suspenders on this. I'm going to ask for a motion to suspend the rules before we get to agenda item 9.2. So right now, I'm going to ask for a motion to suspend the rules that will allow for the voting of ordinance 9.2 later in the meeting. Okay, Don?
Yeah,
Or do I need to read the whole thing?
Are you going to include the recommendation to approve?
Well, should it be to
this
approve?
Communication, yeah. So
Do you want me to read this?
You don't need to, I think it's on the agenda, but we'd need a motion to accept the recommendation of the city manager and suspend the rules. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so
And
clarification, motion to accept the recommendation of the city manager and suspend the rules.
Yes.
Is that okay?
I think that's.
All right. Motion by Alderman Healy, second by Alderman Deuter.
Point of order. I think that should be two motions. I think there should be a suspension of the rules and then a vote on the recommendation.
We can, say it again, Don?
Well, I mean, we've included suspension of rules in committee reports, and they've been both in the same.
We have, but
This is
also,
a suspension of the rules. I'm requesting a suspension of the rules because of the fact that there was no committee report put together.
clarify again, Alderman Mulliner.
There was no
Motion to
committee
accept
report.
city manager's recommendation, A, and then motion to suspend the rules, B. Is
This
that
is
what
a
you're asking for?
replacement to a committee report, so I'm requesting that we suspend the rules in order to allow for the recommendation of the city manager. We've never done this before, and I think we need to put every protection we can in front of us. We have not done this before. I would suggest that we suspend the rules before we accept the recommendation of the city manager, and then we do the same thing for the ordinance to cover our backside.
I understand what you're saying, and we can, if it's two different items we're voting on, we can split them up, but I think we have to, the city manager basically has a recommendation before us, which we would have to vote on first,
I think so.
and then suspension of rules second. You said them opposite, I'm not sure if that was your intent.
Okay.
All right, so we have a request to split this into two different motions. I will honor that request and say, have a motion to accept the city manager's recommendation with regard to this agreement to move forward. That's all I really need on that before we go to the motion to suspend the rules to vote on it. So motion to accept recommendation for city manager. Motion by Alderman Healy, second by Alderman Deuter. Any additional comments on that motion? Clerk Spencer, please call the vote.
Sir?
Alderman Bram.
Yeah, I'll just say one last statement on this. Just because we can do something doesn't mean we should do it. I can't support this.
Great, okay.
We're doing the accept.
Motion to accept city manager's
First.
report.
Healy
Motion
and
by
Deuter.
Alderman
Healy and
Healy,
Deuter.
second by Alderman Deuter.
Right, okay.
Clerk Spencer, please call the roll.
Deuter,
Aye.
Sabatino, absent. Leader,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Graham,
No.
Palumski,
Aye.
York,
Aye.
Toledo,
Aye.
Healy,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Kennedy, absent. Honquist,
Aye.
Wagner,
Aye.
Mulliner.
No.
10 ayes, 2 nays, and 2 absent.
10 ayes, 2 nays. Motion to accept city manager's recommendation is approved. On to the second half of this discussion. Motion to suspend the rules that will allow us to vote on ordinance 9.2 in the agenda. So motion to suspend the rules. Motion by Alderman Healy, second by Alderman Deuter. Any conversation?
Mayor.
Alderman Deuter.
Thank you, Mayor. I do just want to clarify, I wasn't involved in conversations about how to bring this issue forward and how it should appear on the agenda. But given that this is how it has come to us tonight, there are 76 homes in the Tree Street area that serve to, that will benefit from this project as soon as it's complete. Completing it has been, and I think should continue to be a top priority of the city. And I think if any of those 76 homes heard that we, for procedural reasons, put on a 2-week delay, that would not go over well. And, they're my constituents, and I think it's important to move this along. Not that there couldn't have been alternatives to how it moved forward. I would have been happy to meet earlier, but this is how it came to us tonight. I do think it's important to keep this moving. Thank you.
Okay.
Alderman Braham.
Thank you. In regards to the comments that just came forth, I will say, not only could we have done stuff different, but we could still do things different where there wouldn't be a 2-week delay. I don't know, per the project, if a 2-week delay actually would impact, or where they are to the detail that it would really push the project out 2 weeks or not. But we could still meet as a committee tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we could still have a special meeting as a council to have this done within days, if not a week, in time. I don't think that there's any reason why that we shouldn't follow standard operating protocol or procedure here. So just because we didn't do it what I would deem at least the right way coming up to this point, we could still make changes to still do it the right way moving forward. It is important to me to allow the public, if 20, or no people come out for this issue, it is still giving the opportunity of transparency to allow the public to speak to any and all issues before going to a council agenda. I still think we should follow it, and therefore I'm not supporting the rest of this, including the ordinance moving forward.
Okay, additional comments on motion to suspend the rules, Alderman Dunn.
In the commentary by the city manager, the delay was evident if we didn't do this tonight, several weeks. There was also discussion of potentially an increased cost because the contractor would have to move their equipment and then come back. Do we have an idea of what that cost would be, what we're saving?
More.
Doing
I think
this?
the answer is more. I don't know. I don't mean to be trite, but, the contractor had to pack his stuff up and go away for 3 weeks and come back. We can get that number for you. I can just tell you, it would be costs that weren't initially anticipated in the plan.
Well, what I would ask is that we recognize that and negotiate that fact with the contractor that we're doing something to make it operationally more efficient for them and perhaps saving them cost, and I'd like to capture some of that. We met last council meeting, it's $28 million that we're spending on.
Mayor, point of order. I think we're going beyond suspension of the rules.
Well, this is a motion to suspend. If I could try to gather what Alderman Dunn is saying, although maybe negotiation's a little off point, but the timeliness of it is definitely relevant to motion to suspend. But Alderman Dunn, I'll let you wrap up if you...
If I would just ask that we approach the contractor with this potential cost savings for them and try to recoup some of that.
Okay. Alderman Levin, you've had your hand up.
Well, I do agree with Alderman Braham and Molnar that I don't think this is the right way to do it. I am going to support the suspension of rules to get this done tonight because I think it's important, and I think a mitigating circumstance is the fact that this is not a piece of new business that no one knew was coming forward. We've been talking about this project and these pieces of it for months. So it gives me some comfort. I hope never to see something come this way through this process again, but I will support the motion to suspend the rules.
Okay. Any other comments as it relates to motion to suspend? Seeing none, I ask Clerk Spencer to call the vote.
Deuter.
Aye.
Sabatino, absent. Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
No.
Palumski.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Toledo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy, absent. Honquist.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Mulliner.
No.
10 ayes, 2 nays, 2 absent.
10 ayes, 2 nays, motion carries, allowing for suspension of the rules as we consider 9.2 further on in the agenda, which is now, because 9.1, onto ordinances, 9.1 was pulled as it referred to a report that didn't exist, and the request has been withdrawn. So on to agenda item 9.2. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask that you read the ordinance.
An ordinance to accept, approve, and authorize a certain temporary location agreement with the County of DuPage relative to construction of the Walnut Myrtle Evergreen Area Stormwater Management Project.
Okay, to put this before council, I'll ask for a motion to approve the ordinance as read. Motion by Alderman Healy, second by Alderman Deuter. This is what we've been talking about for the past half hour. I think everyone understands what this ordinance does. Any additional comments? Alderman Bram.
Thank you. About 5 minutes ago, I made a comment that I can't support any of this. I guess reconsideration here. I made my stance of procedurally on how we went about it. I totally disagree. But I can't penalize the residents as well as the ordinance at this point, since I'd taken 2 stances prior to this. So I support the ordinance and the project.
Any additional comments? Clerk Spencer, please call a vote.
Deuter.
Aye.
Sabatino, absent. Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Toledo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy, absent. Conquest.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays. Agenda item 9.2, ordinance is approved. On to resolutions.
Oh, wait a second. Resolutions, yes.
We okay over there?
Got it.
Agenda item 10.1. I'd ask Clerk Spencer, it's a resolution. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the resolution.
A resolution expressing official intent regarding certain expenditures to be reimbursed from the Special Tax Allocation Fund for and/or from proceeds from an obligation issued, if any, in connection with the proposed tax increment financing district commonly described and the Church Road, Lake Street redevelopment project area.
Okay, to put this before council, I'll ask for a motion to approve the resolution as read. Motion by Alderman Levin, second by Alderman Mulliner. Alderman Levin?
Thank you, Mayor. As we were all informed last week in the Committee of the Whole, there's a proposal for a new TIF up in the Grand Lake area. This is not approval of that TIF. This is a resolution allowed for under statute that once we pass it, any expenditures that the city makes in furtherance of the TIF can be paid back out of the TIF if one is formed as TIF expenses. The reason it's important to pass it now is that in consideration of the TIF, we have and will incur expenses, and it allows us to be reimbursed from those funds as opposed to a general taxpayer obligation out of the general fund. There is, I saw, a $10 million cap on it. I don't think we'll get anywhere near that, but the point is you don't want to go over the cap. So passing this, again, is not a vote to pass the TIF. It's only a vote that if the TIF passes, that the city can have its expenses reimbursed from the TIF funds.
Okay. Any additional comments as it relates to this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to call the vote.
Deuter.
Aye.
Sabatino, absent. Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Toledo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy, absent. Conquest.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries, resolution is approved. On to other business. Any other business from the dais? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Alderman Deuter, second by Alderman Wagner. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.